Can I quickly speak to that? 'Cause, like to the degree to which I can tune into what you're trying to express here, um, there is an abstraction that is very much core to this ongoing exploration that I call Project Liminality, of finding a tangible software communication protocol that is centered around the free-flowing conversation, the dialogos, where the monologos, which is the class of um, how stories flow through the cold medium, one directional of like books, videos, everything that's one directional, mostly on screens. And the dialogos is this kind of living thing where it goes bidirectional and terms are much less well defined and kind of tuned into in the moment and stuff like that. Um, there's this abstraction that came up after a while, which is the if you look at the notion of space fundamentally, then there's kind of physicists do this. Like there are two different ways to approach it. You can start with the abstraction of an empty Euclidean space kind of thing, the void, if you like, and then you define like objects in that space that are fundamentally separated because you start with the void. Like you start with the pure separation and then you add stuff to it. It's very you can do useful stuff with it, but I would say it's fundamentally a more domesticated kind of approach. And then there's this other way where space is an emergent property of relationship. And this is literally like what physicists do at the cutting edge. Like they look at the relation, the interactions between whatever their fundamental idea is, what the ground of this whole thing is. Often it's like quantum fields and stuff like that. But through the interactions, space and time emerges. So there's something more fundamental going on. And I thought about this a lot, and there's kind of like ever since I discovered the immanent metaphysics, I'm trying to put everything into kind of trinities or dualities with their relationship kind of thing. And what I see is that there is this kind of story you can tell. And if you kind of bear with me, like all these words might be a bit differently defined and taken separately, but together I hope they make sense. Like you have on one side kind of physical space um, that holds the biosphere, with where genetics evolve. And on the other side, you have what I call liminal space. But this is the space in which the noosphere lives and where mimetic organisms evolve. And it's kind of like these two sides of the same coin. Um, and the thing is that in the noosphere, and I've drawn a lot from kind of like the fringes of strangeness a bit, making sense of this. So I haven't successfully well, I don't have t enough experience with astral projection and stuff like that to really speak as like an expert in this, but I heard people describe the astral realm and they say literally like your resonance is like your frequency is your location. So if you will never encounter like some demonic being if your own inner state is not attracting that. So it's literally like the distance is defined through resonance. Things are only close if you resonate with them or they resonate with you. And to me, that feels awfully similar to kind of my experience when I kind of surfed the noosphere, freely flowing, like just kind of being open myself up and seeing what comes. It's very much like distance is resonance. And what this allows, or first, this shows that there is a fundamental challenge here, because if the noosphere, if everything distance is given by resonance in that realm, but the biosphere doesn't work like this, then you can see that someone who's like light years apart in the noosphere, like there's not much resonance in what you might call like their worldview or something like that, can in the biosphere and physical space be neighbors. So you can have like I don't know, jihadis can be neighbors with like Sufi mystics or something like that, where it's just like um there's so much turbulence when this comes together, or like all this holy war stuff. It's all like this problem of like if these people were only meeting other people that thought exactly the same, there would be no need to to fight necessarily. But if we mix that all together in that kind of disorderly fashion, then you start to come into this problem of like counter resonance or stuff like that. So then you can be like, okay, how do we deal with that? And if you approach it from the biosphere kind of perspective, then you're like, okay, we should create membranes and do gatekeeping. Um, but then there's the problem again of like gatekeeping fundamentally brings with it that kind of entropic vibe a bit. Like the system starts to become more close than not, but it seems to be necessary. Whereas if you find some way to kind of um, have the self-organizing property of the biosphere be conducted by and connected to whatever the principles are that self-organize the noosphere, we could plug into that and kind of like let the noosphere do the computation for us. Uh, um, and we could kind of find a way that the noosphere organizes and reorganizes the biosphere. I think that is a path, like first principle kind of approaching this seems like a path towards a more harmonious uh, relational field, like globally. And I think this is already happening because most people that join a intentional community probably first hear about the ideas present there. Like they find it through the noosphere, and then after step by step, they kind of try to soften the tension between the noosphere and the biosphere by moving actually to a place. Um, and so, long story short, the promise that I see with Project Liminality, and I'm working on a prototype, so I have not tested this at scale, and perhaps the Voicecraft Network could be a valuable partner in crime to test this, is that if we can interface using this software and this DreamTalk thing, like there's a lot of things come together, but the right culture can use this instrument to really interface with the noosphere in such a way that you don't have to keep people out of something, but rather if they don't resonate, they will not even encounter it. There will just be an insurmountable distance between this word that which is not in resonance. And you don't have to worry, you don't have to build walls or membranes. I think that kind of membrane seems a bit like a euphemism for wall. But yeah, I see like this liminal space kind of property could be like a profound upgrade in kind of the coherence of the relational field. So I
Okay,
was wondering if I just have a few minutes to show you an
please.
example of DreamTalk.
Okay.
So that kind of came up like, can I share my screen?
Give me one moment. Okay, you should be able to now.
Yeah, cool. Let's see. Because when Cam just was talking, he, can you see that? This visual here?
Yes.
Because you were just referring how we share all these kind of terms. Um, and sorry for that. And like the whole conversation that we had so far was like we saw each other and we were using words, and then we were sometimes maybe describing an image, but it was more just like using words and kind of tuning into what they sound like and stuff. What I see is that with the sand talk modality or dream talk, you can actually um have this, I call it like a new and ancient literacy, where literally like we could talk about this and I wouldn't even need to give it a name, but it makes sense to give it a name. Like, so this is like the Rainbow Bridge. And I can basically explain to you a bit like how did this symbol arise and give you a bit of context, but then we can talk and literally like have this in front of our inner eyes and we're seeing the same thing while we talk. And so it is still, you don't collapse the wave function completely, like this is precisely what it means and nothing else. Um, so you can still do this free-flowing thing, but I believe that the level of kind of intersubjective coherence can reach maybe new realms. Or like it can at least can complement everything that's happening without the dream talk. So just quickly to say like what you're seeing here, like this whole noosphere over here versus biosphere conversation that that I offered, like this frame. Um, this is kind of like just through conversation, people around me, like we kind of came up with this symbol, and it is actually derived from the book Sandtalk. There is a literal symbol with like two spheres connected by or like two circles connected by a larger circle, where one represents the theory and the other the practice. Um, and they should always be in a reciprocal loop. So theory in service to theory is kind of getting lost in its own abstraction. Um, it reminds me on Inception, like this limbo plane or something that the limbo, so that's like the thing that you can reach where you like infinitely stuck in the dream and never go back to like the waking life. And yeah, the other side is more the practice, and they should kind of be in relation. And so this, what kind of came up is the interesting thing, like rainbows have been in the collective consciousness for forever, because they're actually like a very interesting phenomena. One of the favorite artists of my former partner, a German artist, like a romanticist, he used this image of the rainbow. He was like a naturalist landscape painter, and he used the image of the rainbow to signify the relationship between God and man. And so something like heaven and earth is connected through the rainbow. And if you actually look at it, if I were to if I were to search for the most platonic shape I could ever encounter in the earthly realm, the most heavenly perfect shape, actually the rainbow it came to me like the rainbow is the most prevalent example that I could point to. Like it's perfectly circular to the degree that you can see it. It's perfectly abstract, or like it's a perfect abstraction instructed, something like that. Um, and so yeah, I don't know. This came then up as like, okay, maybe the rainbow can be, at least in metaphor, be used as the bridge that connects heaven and earth, the platonic and the earthly realm, or something like that. And you don't even need to make it more explicit and more rigorous than that. Um, and then in the middle here is like the zero of stillness, like the point, the center of centers from which yin and yang kind of polarize outwards. And yeah, so this is an example, like just it's not a textbook definition of anything. It's not it's not kind of pathologically rigorous that it limits and constricts the exploration, but it is more than not like it has non-zero rigor to it, but still is open. And you could kind of play with the idea and at the same time play with the image. You could do a dialectic. So, for example, I have individual uh, DreamTalk for like the noosphere. So here I put it. Why is this so big? Um, sorry. Well, you can see it good enough. Like there's the individual noosphere, and I can weave that in. Like the concept of the noosphere has a visual representation. So now I can weave that into some other DreamTalk that is a dialectic between this concept and another one. So suddenly, like this kind of recursive dialectic that gives rise to what I call like the liminal flow, where you just like find things that resonate and integrate them into a larger whole um, all the time, and you analyze and synthesize all the time. Now you have like a visual counterpart to that. And the cool thing is you can actually project that into like computer code and use GitHub for all of this stuff. So there's like a tangible software that can, it doesn't keep track of, like Jordan Hall has this distinction between the logo and the logos, where the logo is kind of like the words themselves, and the logos is the meaning within the words or behind the words. So the logos are sacred and couldn't be fully described. Like if it could be fully represented in the omniscient, it wouldn't be what it is. But the logo, that kind of surface, or like the finger pointing to that moon, that can be described and explicated. And a culture that is mature enough to recognize that the logo is not the logos, but it can help us to come in deeper relationship with the logos, I think can wield such a tool where you have this kind of omniscient realm of logo that evolves, dream talk, um, but it all is in service to the dialogos, the free-flowing kind of sharing of the proper logos, you know. It's just kind of enriching that or offering new modes to kind of approach this. Um, yeah, so I just wanted to make that a bit more tangible, kind of what I was talking about before.
No, I get it. I absolutely get it. It's beautifully depicted.
I think the
So,
just to quickly like add this language there, like I think what you just reluctantly described as voice crafting, I call that dream weaving. So
mm,
there's the dream talk, that's kind of the omniscient, is it? I'm
right.
not sure. There's the dream talk is not the immanent.
Yeah.
Then there's the dream song. That's a linear, almost a songline, but it's a linear thread of dream talk woven together.
Mm,
And dream weaving is the immanent practice. That's kind of a relationship, the dynamic relationship between the two.
mm,
Um, and yeah, so like the dream stuff, like the GitHub, like this prototype that I'm building, like the fundamental unit, I call like a dream node to make
mm,
all of the stuff happen. But basically, throughout this whole conversation, if this thing would be like super mature and we could use it without interrupting the flow of the conversation, like the a dream talk is also defined as the slice of the monologus, the subset that you're able to bring up in the dialogus without that enriches the conversation rather than distracts away from it.
beautiful.